In the name of Allah, who is the most beneficent and the merciful. Dr. Perveen is here. Welcome to our course Globalization and Spread of English. Today our topic is diversification decay? Or we will discuss this topic in greater detail in today's lecture. Or if you can remember about the course outline, I think we have discussed and covered the concepts and topics of around 5 weeks, and we are discussing the before midterm we have started 6 weeks, or the terms or contents of 6 weeks we are discussing these days. So number today we have discussed in 6 weeks we have discussed the role of English in multilingual setting, English as the language of administration and press, language planning, English in education, English literature, that we will discuss later, or nativization of Indian English, it will be our next lecture. Is diversification decay, or the question of standard English, that we will be discussed today, diversification decay or the question of standard English. So let's move on our today's topic or introduction. Diversification or varieties. What is diversification? It's called, it's diversity of something is the fact that contains many very different elements. Can be many different elements of things, many different elements of different varieties. Or if we talk about in linguistics terms, diversity means there are many varieties of languages, or local languages, or national languages, or international languages, or there are some dialects, or there are some varieties or some varieties of different languages. So here question arises, if there are multiple languages being used by the people, being used by the different community members, so is this diversification will affect their local languages, or it means there will be decay? Decay mean death, decay mean decay, but we can understand in easy terms. Decay mean we are not using anymore that language decay mean the use of that particular language has been lost, and we have stopped to use that language. So if there are different varieties of different languages in the perspective, and people will be using those varieties according to the context, so there is any possibility that maybe it will affect their own languages, it will affect their local languages, or their affect their native languages. So today we will discuss all this in greater detail. So you can see here there are thousands of languages, and varieties what make up the linguistic diversity. It means how many languages would be there, and there will be large quantity. We will be having languages in large quantity. So languages are not static entities. It's exactly, but we cannot say that a language that is being used, it will be remain being used in the future time, in the next few years time, or next few centuries. No, there will be change, gradual change. There will be gradual change, continuous change will be existed in a particular language or in different languages. So we can say languages are alive and dynamic. Gradually they are moving, they are in the process of changing, they are in the process of alternation, or there are some sort of changes continuously. So in fact languages evolve and even disappear. So it means we can say that some new languages, some new varieties can be emerged, or some already existent languages or varieties could be disappeared, or can lost their status as languages. So here you can see the example. It was Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, that was evolving in its various forms into new languages, as it's in the case of French, Spanish and Italian, all of them from Latin root. They all sprout out from the Latin. but they became new varieties or new languages. But the origin is Latin language. Each language has a community of speakers, a vocabulary, and a way of expressing their reality. All these factors are changing and are altering with the passage of time. So also own languages are modified. So there's process of modification and alteration is going on. It's a dynamic process. So this process is going on. The Spanish of the 21st century, in that talking is in the Middle Ages, have elements in common and also large differences because the same words acquire new meanings. Linguistic diversity is a source of controversy when a group that uses language seeks to impose on those who communicate in a different language. The rivalry between groups with different languages is a worldwide phenomenon that has happened since ancient times. So this dispute whether one variety is superior than other variety or one language is being used as a status symbol or one language is uh, not being used by the large community members, or what we can say, this is not a new phenomena. I'm sorry, this is not a new phenomenon. It's all going since ages or since ancient times, the rivalry between groups with different languages. So every culture, every community member, every culture and members of every community, they try to make their languages superior or to make their language standard language, or to they want to spread their language at a large scale. So linguistic diversity doesn't necessarily imply a confrontation. It can also be a source of cultural enrichment. Yes, it doesn't mean that there are varieties, that there are different languages, or some local languages will be lost, or some languages will be able to get a higher status or superior status in the society, or there will be confrontation, there will be dispute, or there will be confliction between local languages or foreign language, or between already existed languages or new emerging language. We can take it as a we can take it as a asset. Yes, a person who knows many languages, he is considered a very educated or very valued person, that he knows many languages, or as compared to a monolingual who doesn't know many languages. So we can understand that knowing the language, knowing the different languages, or be able to speak different languages, it can be asset for an individual rather than problem or problematic issue. So linguistic diversity, or people will be able to, by this linguistic diversity, there are many languages throughout the world that are spoken by different community members, and we will get awareness about different languages. So it must be taken as positive rather than negative sense, or it must be taken as asset rather than weakness. This phenomena occurs in some big cities such as New York, where our majority languages, English, share the same space with the Chinese and the Spanish or Russian. Yes, we cannot say that in New York we will be able to just listen English, English, and English. No, there are some other varieties also. Mm, we can hear some other varieties, Chinese or Spanish or Russian languages also. We can hear over there in that context. How many multilingual society is there? We can say according to that situation we will be able to hear many languages. For example, I want to give my example. During my stay in Malaysia, I used to hear Chinese, I used to hear English, I used to hear Malay, I used to hear Arabic languages, and many different languages, or Nigerian accents in English or in Arabic. So how many multilingual societies there are more and more probable chances to discuss or to hear or to examine or to observe this linguistic diversity. Edward explains that it is quite apparent that languages in contact can become languages in conflict. Yes, when there will be two languages, there will be confliction between one or two, between first language or secondly, between native language or between foreign language, or between native accents or variety, between and foreign language or variety. So the force of circumstance, natural or contrived, can cause a group to abandon its original language for another big languages. So how much people are forced to use those languages? They are using the small languages or big languages, so the languages of higher status or languages of lower status. It depends upon the circumstances and whether they are indulged in natural setting. Definitely they need to use that particular language. If they want to use the status language in natural setting, they will use that language continuously or persistently. Or if the circumstances are not natural and sporadically, sometimes they need to use that language, or they need to use that smaller language rather than big languages. So it will affect the usage of those languages. If the need is that, but we can say it's a natural phenomena, sorry, natural circumstances. Definitely the person learn or use that particular language more as compared to if there is no natural phenomena, no natural circumstances, that language will be used in a least demand. So we are talking about the when languages in contact can become languages in conflict. ठीक है, in Urdu we also say, or in Punjabi, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਦੋ ਚਾਰ ਬੰਦੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਲੜਾਈ ਤਾਂ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ, ਉੱਥੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ. So in what we can say in Punjabi and in English, we can also can understand when there are meeting of different languages, there will be dispute, there will be conflictions, and there will be talking they will be talking about lower status and higher status and status language or least status language. So we need to consider in this context when the languages are in contact. English, French, Spanish can push smaller ones around and can contribute to their demise, and competition can exist among smaller varieties. For example, here we can say in Pakistani community, we can say which languages are we consider that higher status, or which language we consider the lower status. Also, I'm not in favor of condemning our local language or native language or mother tongue. We must encourage our children that they must speak at least their mother tongue. They must at least they must know their mother tongue. They must communicate their mother tongue. But it's a dilemma of our nation. It's a dilemma of our community. What we can say, that we are forced to use languages of higher status. We are forced to use or to learn languages of higher status, that we will, what we can say, that will assist us in our future life also. So here, as we can see, English, French, or Spanish can be smaller ones around and can contribute to their demise, and competition can exist among smaller varieties of particular language. Same like in our this what we can say, this dispute of different diversification or different varieties of language. English will be here, dominated language. English will be here in Pakistani. I'm talking about in Pakistani community. English will be here in higher status or status of language. More people, if they can do, if they have option, if they can approach to learn that language, definitely they will learn the language of higher status rather than uh, using their own language or their own local varieties or the local languages or native languages. The idea of language diversity also appears in the same language. Yes, the Spanish have a variety of spines, expressions, or accents, and Peruvian perfectly understands itself with the Mexican, although some words create confusion. So it doesn't mean that the confrontation could be arise between different languages. In one particular language also there will be confliction, or there will be confrontation between different variety of a same language. So in talk about Urdu language, here are some Hyderabadi Urdu languages, or there are some simple speaker of Urdu languages that they don't know the exact Urdu variety. So there are some varieties of Urdu languages. So same like in English language, the people of Western countries or people of UK or USA, they know the which varieties are better or which varieties are having least status. So this confrontation or diversification could also be seen in the same language. The interactions of a group of people vary in many respects in frequency and value of speaking, interpretation of speaking, performances, and shared language forms. So it depends upon the usage of that particular language, how many frequently or how many use of that particular language is going on in a particular society. So it depends upon the circumstances in what way people will use that particular language of different status. Linguistic diversity is a way to talk about varied types of trait, including language family, grammar, vocabulary, style, and register, and so forth, when they attempt to interact with or achieve particular goals with their environments. So linguistic diversity, we can understand these also elements. Language family, from where this language is originated, it's Indo-Iranian or Indo-European languages, or what sort of grammar all of those languages are being used, or vocabulary or style and register, etc. We also need to cover these concepts also under the linguistic diversity. The speech community maintains the norms and rules of communication, but it may gradually change them. On the other hand, in every speech community, there is a degree of individual deviation from the norms. Not all the groups communicate in the same way. Yes, we can also observe in our community this point on the in every speech community there is a degree of individual deviation. Deviation means people who do not care about the norms and exact rules and norms of that particular language, that deviate, they violate the norms and rules of the particular language. So this violation of the norms of a particular language by the speaker of that particular language is going on. So it also becomes the cause of linguistic diversity. So when we talk about this linguistic diversity, it means as a result, if we will see and examine the result of this linguistic diversity is the language decay. It means the loss of status or of some language of some languages of least status. So some language could be died away, or some will be murder of some languages, there will be suicide of some languages. It also included the language decay. Decay mean we can understand to died away, to lost, to get lost, or that is not in the usage of anymore. What we can say understand language decay. So in the modern period, from 1500th century to present times, following the rise of colonialism, the language death has typically resulted from the process of cultural assimilation when two cultures, when different cultures assimilated or join together or spend time together. It will be a language shift. As a result of this will be a language shift and the gradual abandonment of a native language in the favor of a foreign lingua franca, largely those of European countries. So you can understand when the British came here in the subcontinent, when the culture of British and the culture of subcontinent, people of the subcontinent, it's started to work together. So they have their impact on both members of the on the members of the both communities or both cultures. So with that the language shift started to emerge. They started to learn foreign language or English language, or the language that could be understood by the large community of the members of that particular locality. British came here. They didn't know the native language or indigenous or local languages. They knew just English language. So the native people didn't know the English language. So they started to use that particular lingua franca, or probably the most or majority of the words, what we can say, the characteristics of a lingua franca could be visible in English language. But we cannot say that the Urdu was started to use as lingua franca. No, although the native people were in majority, but it was a, what we can say, forceful impose or imposition of that their languages to use as a lingua franca, to use that particular language, to use that English language as a lingua franca. So they started to shift their language. They started to shift native language to foreign language, or they started to use the English language as a lingua franca. So as of the 2000s, a total of roughly 7,000 natively spoken languages existed in the world. According to the 2020 years back, the census showed us that there are totally 7,000 native languages, or 7,000 languages that are being used by the native people. Most of these are minor languages in danger of extinction. It means they are at risk that then very soon they will be died away, they will be murdered, or there will be deaths of that languages. So one estimate published in 2004 expected that some 90% of the currently spoken language will have become extinct by 2050. So maybe how much they are accurate in their findings, or how much they are exactly right according to this percentage, but it's also reality that there are some languages that are under risk and they are dying away, or there is a death of some languages. Here we will discuss in the few slides, we will discuss some of them. So language murder and suicide, it's a very pathetic situation when it becomes a language murder or suicide. Adversities that a linguist has recently suggested that both murder and suicide occur murder when dissimilar languages are in contact. For example, when British came here, they brought their own language, English, or the people of native locality have their own languages, Urdu, Persian, Turkish, or Arabic. So these were the dissimilar languages, means these were different languages. So when different languages come into contact or intercounter, there is intercounter of different languages, the language murder happens. Whereas what is suicide? Suicide of the language. When similar languages come into contact, but where again one possesses higher status, the suicide here involves the ever increasing borrowing from the prestigious form. Yes, it's more pathetic situation, not suicide. Well, similar language we can understand, like for example, what we can understand here, the different varieties of English language, or some similar languages. The languages have some similar components or some similar elements, or maybe they are originated from the same root. Or we can talk about here Urdu language or Punjabi language, although they are not similar, but they are some similarities. They have some similarities. Means majority of the words can be understood. If some people don't know the Urdu language and they can speak only Punjabi language, they can understand. Or the Punjabi speaker who don't know Urdu language, they can understand Urdu language. So It means when similar languages come into contact, one language will be lost. The usage of one language will be diminished. So it will be occur to side of that particular language. So it is ever increasing borrowing. This process of borrowing or taking words from that languages will be increased, or it will be continuous. So, in linguistic diversity, both forms of decline ultimately involve suicide in the sense that at some point a new variety is adopted. This is the view of another linguist who notes that the direct cause of language death is the lack of transmission to children. Lack of transmission to children. It means when our new generation, our kids and our children are not speaking our mother tongue or L1 or our own language, it means there will be a death of that particular language, death of our mother tongue. Take the example of Punjabi language. We are Punjabi speaker living in a province of Punjab. Majority of the people here are Punjabi speaker. But in majority cases, here we can understand in the current perspective, majority of the people, they don't like that their children must speak Punjabi. They prefer to speak Urdu instead of their Punjabi language. Here in my home, again, this situation is going on most of the time. My husband asks, oh, leave this Urdu language aside and stop speaking this Urdu language and just speak our own language, Punjabi. But the next moment, he is also speaking Urdu language, and we are surprised. What will be done now? So we are forced. What sort of disforcement? Disforcement, I think we can understand. It's a need of our time, or it's a need of our context. Although we are staying at home and we like to speak Punjabi with our children, but every other moment we also forget, because in the continuous process in our more than 20 years time we are speaking Urdu language, or our children, our smaller children especially, I am giving my own examples. My three younger children, they don't know Punjabi language, they cannot speak Punjabi language. So whenever my husband remember, oh, we are Punjabi, we must speak Punjabi at home. Stop this Urdu languages at home. At least they must be fluent in their own language. The next moment, he's also speaking Urdu language. So in majority cases, whether we want or we don't want, we are forced to leave, or we are forced to stop our speaking our Punjabi language even at home, and we cannot say that we will prefer this language over there when we are out of the home. So when our younger generation will stop using that language, so there will be a direct death, or direct cause of language death. This occurs because a community sometimes decide, for a reason, for functional economy, to suppress a part of itself that we have discussed. Language decay. There are some languages who are under threat or who are at the risk, and there we will see some of them we will discuss here. Rosa Geron, it's a language. Rosa entering Geron, the last female speaker of the Amazonian language, was murdered in Peru at age 67. It means this language has been died away. The last speaker of that language, it was in 2016, she was murdered. So this language has been died away. She and her brother Pablo, that speaker of that language, Rosa and Red. She and her brother Pablo knew Rezogero as the last noun speaker, making it one of the most endangered languages. Where the children of a Rezogero mother and Oceania father, they spoke their mother's language to honor her and were also among the last 40 speakers of Oceania. Next, endangered language is Mudbra or Mudbra. This Aboriginal language or Australian Northern Territory, where that language is spoken. And that language might actually be growing or at least better documented. It means before this it was a, in danger, but with the passage of time, it is growing. Speakers of that language are in growing numbers. Australia's 2006 census estimated that there were only 47 speakers left, but now, in 2016, according to the report of 2016, the speaker 47 increased to 92 of this Mudbra language. Next is Eno. The Eno people are indigenous to Japan's Hokkaido Island, but they have largely assimilated into Japanese culture. In 1980s marked a revival in the indigenous culture, but its language has been between 2 and 15 native speakers, and they are all older than 64. Next, there is a dancer. The ancient language dancer is still used in the special occasions like marriage, proposals, and wedding in Papua Indonesia island village, but it had just 3 speakers left in 2011. The 2 adults in their 60s and 70s almost died in earthquake and floods that threatened the community that year. So Oxford University linguists rushed to document the critically endangered language. Next, there is a Jadak. Linguists didn't even know this Malaysian language existed before this until today. Swedish researchers realized some local in Malay Peninsula village were using vocabulary, grammar, and sounds unique from the Jahai language they were studying. They estimate the village had just 280 speakers left. The last 3 speakers of Megati Ki, Mary Nagar or Mary Nagar is a moribund Australian Aboriginal language. Aboriginal means indigenous or local language spoken along the northwest coast of the Northern Territory. So it's an Australian language. Linguistic diversity in Pakistan. People speak as many as 74 languages in Pakistan, or maybe according to the new census or according to the new investigation. As I have heard somewhere, around more than 80 languages spoken in Pakistan. Urdu is Pakistan's national language, but only 10% of the people speak it, according to the ethnologue. Punjabi is the most common language. 48% of people speak it. But now this trend is being changed. 12% of the people speak Sindhi, 10% Saraiki and English, 8% Pashto, 3% Balochi, 2% Hinduku, and 1% people speak Broi language. In Punjab, Punjabi speaking area consists of Lahore, Sialkot, Faisalabad, Gujranwala, Rawalpindi, Sargodha, Jhelum, and Gujarat. Punjabi language is blessed with many dialects such as Majhi, Dwabi or Potwari, Jangli, Hindko or Shahpuri, Dhani, and Saraiki. These are the different varieties or dialects of Punjabi language. Here you can see some diversification in Punjabi language, like if you can understand these words. If you are Punjabi speaker, definitely you will be able to at least understand these words. The first word here, lal, L-A-L, lal, or ratta, or sua, sua lal, or sua lal ratta. These are the words spoken by the Punjabi speaker most of the cases, or it means red color. Next word is zanani, or this is also spoken zal, or bibi, wife. Next word is nyane. Oh, nyane, bacche, bal bacche, or jatak, child or children. Next word, kive, how in English what we say how, kive, or kidda, or kistra, kestra, okay, how. Next is, what is the next word? Cheti, yes, cheti, jaldi, or chode, or trick, trick, quickly, jaldi se, immediately. Next word is thwada, Tusarda or Tusada or Tera. In English, we will say yours. Or next word is Bota, Bone, or Ghana, too much. Or next word is Hanji, Aho, Ha. Hanji, Aho, Ha. Yes. In English, we will say yes. Or next word is Bawe, Chahiye, or Bhale. भले आप जाना चाहें या ना जाना चाहें सॉरी भले तुसी जाना चाहो या ना चाहो भावें or whether here I want to share hanji aho and ha here I want to share a joke with you I heard many years ago there was a traveler who reached in a city and he wanted to reach at his destination and he inquired about that destination. He showed the address to another man and stopped him and asked about the destination. I want to go over there. Do you know this address? So that man replied, Aho. Next, but they didn't know the address. After some time, that passenger or traveler met another man. Then he asked from that man, do you know this address? He said, G. And he said, how many people today I met and I asked from that about this address. They said, Aho. And you said, G. It means you are educated. He said, Aho. Yes. Turn to the next. Next, there is standard variety. UK and US are the concepts of standard British English and general American English, which are codified in grammatical description, dictionaries, and manuals of usage. It means they are our forefathers regarding usage of this language or regarding using this standard variety of English. If we want to speak native like native people, it means we have to consult American variety or British. American variety is also called GA variety or General American, or British variety it's called RP, received pronunciation RP. Here I think I forgot to mention this RP. So you can understand RP means British variety or GA means American variety. So there are some reasons how we have to adopt this language, how we have to adopt those varieties of British and American as a standard variety. So here we can understand reason number one is here uniform standard worldwide is essential for maintaining world English or international English or global English as a viable means of communication or as a lingua franca. So there are some uniform standards, means what we can say there is no too much difference over there in British and American. They are uniform standard. As we compare, if we want to compare those varieties with our local varieties or with our Pakistani English, it means they have similarity or they have uniform standards. So similar standards, it means what we can say similar standards of British English or American English. Acceptance of multiple norms would lead to fragmentation of the language and leave us again without a common language for interaction across culture. So we will be able to accept the different varieties of different countries, for example Indian English, Pakistani English, Bangladeshi English, or Malay English, or what we can understand of Chinese English. So there will be a lot of varieties, a lot of standards, and lot of many norms that we have to adopt. So the task will be more and more difficult. So if we have uniform standard, we have uniform variety of English language, so the task of learning language or using of that foreign language for non-native people, it becomes easier. So there's availability of uniform standard worldwide, it makes a lingua franca. That is the purpose of the native people. Next, there is the availability of codified varieties. There are already varieties that have been codified after extensive and intensive research. They have worked a lot. They have planned many years ago. They have planned. If we have talked about the British or American, they have planned because they will be able to make their language a lingua franca. They will be able to make their language a standard language or English variety a standard variety. So they have done work. They have done in G word regarding expanding of their language. So this work, this extensive work out on their languages, because of that we have these varieties, or these varieties are available for us. So there is an abundance of instructional and references material in American and British English. So we can say we can find out many options to learn this English language, or we have a lot of instructional material that is available on internet also, as compared to other languages. Other Englishes such as Indian or Singaporean have yet to be codified. Yes, just we are talking about that. Just English and English of British or English of American variety is codified, is means acceptable as a standard variety. Standard variety. So in any case, educated spoken varieties across these regions are not so different from American or British varieties, or from another, and even less differentiated are than written varieties. So people in the outer and expanding circle use English for restricted purposes for which the models of English currently available are quite adequate. So therefore, there is no need to look for new internal norms in India, the Philippines, or Singapore. The third reason is there being a standardized norms of British English or American English is unmatched creativity of standard varieties. The relationship between language and culture is gradual. And all this talk of nativization and acculturation does not change the fact that English necessarily reflects British and American culture. So the creativity of the inner circle user or native speaker remains unmatched in the outer and expanding circle varieties. The reason is there because the use of those varieties of English varieties or standard varieties is very limited in the context of expanding circle or outer circle. They are not using those particular languages or those particular varieties or standard varieties in each and every occasion, or they are the particular use or limited use or specific use of that language, so it makes them unmatched. So this is also the reasons, and this is their policy to remain different. Policy of the people of standard varieties, they wanted to they wanted to make this disparity or the difference. They wanted to show this difference between local and foreign varieties or standards. So that's why it's also there included in their policies.